Imagine this. You're driving down the highway. You see those flashing blue lights pop up in your rearview mirror. So you pull over, expecting a police officer. But what if the person who gets out of that car isn't a cop at all? Today we are diving deep into an investigation that starts with that exact, unsettling scenario and spirals into a really shocking story of alleged corruption, forgery, and what looks like a criminal enterprise operating from inside the police force itself. It's a huge question, isn't it? Who polices the police? It's really the central theme of what we're breaking down today. You know, when the lines between actual law enforcement and private business get blurry, who's there to hold them accountable? Let's get into the evidence that was presented at a formal commission of inquiry.
Okay, so here's where it all begins. It kicks off with this one single incident. A black BMW gets pulled over on the N12 highway because it's using police lights, which of course it shouldn't be. The car is traced back to a private security firm, and pretty quickly investigators realize, hold on, this isn't just a one-off thing. It's the first thread they pull in a much, much bigger web.
Now, before we get into the wild explanations that came later, let's kind of put on our auditor hats for a second. In policing, every single official action is supposed to leave a paper trail. If there's a traffic stop, it gets logged. You can check the radio control records, the electronic logbooks, and the occurrence book, or OB, at the station. This is just standard procedure. Now remember this, because we're about to see how this entire process was just completely ignored.
So, when a senior officer, a brigadier named Julius Mokwanezi, is asked to explain why this private car is running around with blue lights, well, investigators don't get a straight answer. Instead of official records, they get a very different story, one that suggests this wasn't an accident, but just how they did business.
So get this. Here's the core of Mokwanezi's defense. He doesn't deny it, he leans right into it. He says, oh yeah, we have a formal relationship with this company, CAT VIP Security. And he doesn't just say they work together sometimes. He says they assist the police at all scenes. That is a massive claim. He's basically saying a private company is acting like a wing of the police force.
And to back this up, Mokwanezi forwards some WhatsApp messages as his proof of this collaboration. The messages show this list of units from supposed operation at the OR Tambo Airport. And you see these elite police units like the Hawks and the Special Task Force, and then bam, right there in the middle of the list, CAT VIP Security and another firm, Bad Boys Security.
And here it is, the first major red flag. Mokwanezi sends this as proof that his department, the Ekurhuleni Metro Police, or EMPD, works with CAT VIP. But take a close look at that list. Who's missing? The EMPD themselves. How can you be running the show like he claimed if your own unit isn't even listed? It just doesn't add up.
So those WhatsApp messages were pretty flimsy, right? Investigators knew it, so they dug deeper. They demanded to see the formal agreements, the Memorandums of Understanding, or MOUs, that Mokwanezi said existed, and what they found was even more shocking than the texts.
Just let this sink in for a second. This is from an official document, an MOU, signed by a senior police official. It appears to give a private, for-profit company permission to use police lights and respond to crime scenes on behalf of the actual police. I mean, that's essentially outsourcing law enforcement, which is completely illegal.
Let's be crystal clear about why this is such a huge problem. Police serve the public. They are accountable to the state. Their power comes from the law. Private security firms, they serve paying clients, and they're accountable to their shareholders. Their whole job is to protect private property. You just cannot hand over state police powers to a private business. The two are fundamentally different.
So what was the police department getting in return for this partnership? Well, the MOU lists a fleet of vehicles that's pretty unbelievable, BMWs or Mercedes, plus helicopter access and tactical training. And it really makes you ask the question, why would a private company offer such incredibly lavish resources to a public police force? What's in it for them?
So the story keeps building, because Mokwanezi's final piece of proof was an operational plan for a city event. But when investigators looked at it, something was clearly off. It looked like a forgery. An investigator even testified that just looking at it, it seemed like it had been photoshopped or something.
So, how did they know it was fake? Well, first there were these inconsistent printer smudges. The first few pages had a little mark from a dirty cartridge, but then the middle pages were perfectly clean, and then the smudges came back. It was like someone had inserted clean pages into an old document. But then came the absolute smoking gun.
And here it is, clear as day. Look at the bottom of page 13 and the top of page 14. The exact same heading, Administration and Logistics, is repeated. It's a classic, clumsy copy and paste mistake. It's just undeniable proof that someone stitched two different documents together to create a fake record.
So why would they go to all this trouble? Well, tucked away in the mission statement of this doctored plan is this one line which seems to have been inserted. It gives the main job of protecting the VIPs, the principals, to the private company CAT VIP. And the actual police, the EMPD, oh, they were just assigned to access control and protecting property. The document was literally altered to justify the private company's illegal role.
So as investigators kept peeling back these layers of forged documents and bizarre stories, they realized that the blue light incident, that wasn't the real story. It was just a window into what one investigator described as a full-blown criminal enterprise operating inside the Specialized Services Unit.
And this slide really shows you a deeply disturbing pattern. The allegations went way beyond just blue lights. We're talking about a specific truck hijacking scheme where officers would recover the front of the truck, the horse, but the valuable trailer and all its cargo would just disappear. Civilians were apparently given official-looking letters to collaborate with police, and then, tragically, one of those civilians, a Mr. Jacko Hanekom, was assassinated.
So with all of this evidence, why wasn't anything done? It's shocking. When Internal Affairs tried to take disciplinary action, they were told to stand down. They were told that an independent police watchdog was about to make arrests, and any internal action might damage their criminal cases. But those arrests never happened, and the officers involved, they stayed on duty.
This whole thing brings us to the bigger picture. This isn't just about a few bad cops. It's about a systemic failure. It's about the blurring of that sacred line between public service and private profit, and the profound cost that comes with it.
The legal principle at the heart of this is something called the non-delegation doctrine. It's a foundational idea. The state gives police unique powers, the power to use force, to arrest, to enforce the law. Those powers cannot just be handed over or outsourced to a private, for-profit company. It violates a fundamental rule of governance and accountability.
Sometimes, beyond all the legal arguments and the forged documents, it just comes down to a gut feeling. One investigator, when he was describing the moment he first read that MOU, he put it perfectly. He said the whole arrangement was so fundamentally wrong that every fiber of his being just jumped up and screamed that something was horribly wrong.
And that leaves us with this final, pretty chilling question. The very systems we rely on for safety, the occurrence books, the operational plans, the chain of command, they were allegedly manipulated and forged. So if the documents that are meant to ensure accountability can't be trusted, and the watchdogs fail to act, who is left to protect the public from the very people who are supposed to be their protectors?